Don't cheat if you don't have where to stay. This will be a long text, so bear with me. Not a native speaker, so sorry for any grammatical errors. I have been struggling with my still wife cheating for a long time now. I tried everything: therapy, counseling, psych therapy, all the whole yards. She was bragging for months. She bragged about having true friends who were always available to help her when she needed. She brought me to the brink of suicide, but I'm better now. 3 weeks ago, I served her the divorce papers. She went nuts. In my country, there is a marital contract where each spouse gets to keep their belongings if there are no children. We married under that contract, and there were no children, so she's not allowed to my car, house, and it is very hard to earn alimony. She went nuts and has been stalling the divorce process as long as she can, but she can't claim anything as we have separate goods and there are no children. We had some very nasty discussions after I served her the papers. Her lawyer called mine and told him to keep me from ever contacting her. He was threatful and arrogant. He doesn't know that my lawyer is very well connected and doesn't have to resort to petty threats to have the job done. She left home 2 weeks ago to go to her affair partner's house, AP, and even brought her father to try and intimidate me. I did not give, and even told her father he should not abuse his welcome at my house, and that I was even willing to call the police if I felt the slightest sign of illegal or any kind of threat. She left 2 weeks ago. When she came to pick up her dog, she told me she had been fighting for our relationship, and she gave me a lot of opportunities. I just told her that she didn't have to give opportunities, that she only had to do a small change, cut all ties with the AP. There is a very complicated issue with that I'm not willing to tell unless asked, but it's not that easy to her to cut those. I know as a fact that she's staying with her AP, and he can't stand the dog. And here's where the revenge comes. It is very common in my country that when you're renting a house or apartment, you need a collateral or something called a solidary debtor. If you are a collateral, you need to have a fully paid property under your name, and the owner of the rented house can seize your property until you or the tenant pay such debt. Or you're a solidary debtor, that debt becomes yours. 3 days ago, my soon-to-be ex-wife sent me a message, against her lawyer's order of no contact, asking me to be her solidary debtor to rent a new home, and that her AP hated the dog and intentionally left the door open for the dog to go out to look for her. I just told her a plain no. Right now, she doesn't have any friends or family willing to sign as collateral or solidary debtor. Her AP is pissed about the dog, and she's unable to rent a home without help. I do feel bad for the dog. He's very charismatic and a great company. Yesterday, she called me to ask me why I wasn't willing to sign. I told her something like this: "You're no longer my responsibility. You went to your APs. Where are your friends? Your AP that travels all over the world? Your artist friend who lives in a $3 million house where you could spend weeks without seeing each other? Your 2 lawyer friends who earn above $1 million a year who told you they were available for everything you needed? They don't want to sign because your word means shit. They have abandoned you. If I have to get a legal document forcing you to pay your part of the payments of the house we bought together to do so, Noon is going to help you with that, for you to leave the debt for them. They are helping you to get a rented place, but none are signing because they know you're not trustworthy." She went nuts, uploading WhatsApp states calling me insensitive, a cheater, and abusive. I just uploaded another one, not directed to her, only with the caption, "Butthurt?" She would not understand it as she barely speaks English, but it is satisfying. Marisol, if you're reading this, I elate on reading your mental cobwebs. I love how your AP hates you, and Rocky and I love how you are struggling to find a shithole to get out of your new hell. But I hope you find a good home for Rocky, because he is loved more than you. TLDR, cheating spouse asked me to sign as collateral or solidary debtor. I denied, and she's having issues with her affair partner. Aida for telling my dad he's the reason none of his kids talk to him anymore after he told me I'm wasting my prime birthing years to go into law school. So my dad has always been the stereotypical Christian conservative man. This is something that, although I don't agree with it at all, I have always tried to be respectful rather than constantly trying to fight and argue with him about his beliefs. He's always been against college as a whole, viewing it as expensive liberal indoctrination. He would constantly ask for what classes I was taking and would have meltdowns over liberal classes. When I told him that I was going to study criminal justice, bold enough to say he wasn't happy. Anyways, so flash forward to 3 months ago, when I finally visited my family, after not seeing them in person for 4 years, and I decided to bring my boyfriend along. The entire time of our stay, he kept asking about marriage and kids, and my boyfriend and I would keep bringing up how we plan on waiting a little bit until we're more financially stable, especially since we live in a city where everything is pretty expensive. On the last day of our trip, I planned on buying my parents a nice steak dinner and really tried pushing about me wanting to surprise them with some really good news, since I thought that just maybe me telling them I got into law school would make them proud of me. We got there, and I told them. My dad, he went on a rant about how I need to reconsider since it's a long time to be in college, how my scholarships surely won't pay for this, how about me making more money than my boyfriend could make him look bad as a man, who will take care of your kids? And then blowing up even more when my boyfriend mentioned how there's a lot of remote accounting jobs that he honestly would prefer doing over in person. Then finally, the dreaded words, "Don't you think you're wasting your prime birthing years as a woman to do this? What if you can't have kids by the end of this?" A female's body physically can't handle not having babies before her 30s. Don't you think you should focus more on starting an actual family rather than chasing this fantasy? Look at you. You don't look like a lawyer. What if nobody hires you? Then what? You now won't have anything. Why can't you just focus on your actual future? Dead silence across the table. It's like my heart dropped to my stomach as he said that, and out of me at that rate, being so hurt because I genuinely had it in my head that maybe for a second he could look at my hard work and be proud of me, that I told him, "You're so fucking selfish and ignorant. You treat all your kids like they're less than you, and then wonder why none of them talk to you. Maybe for once in your life, could you have at least pretended to care about someone other than yourself?" Bold to say, this resulted in him damn near yelling at me, and my mom having to get him to go outside to have a smoke to calm down. I've been told by my mom that although she's proud that I stood up for myself, I could have been way nicer about it. So Ada for saying what I said to my dad? My boss wanted me to falsify invoices, so I gave him a hardware problem my last 2 weeks. I was a system administrator at a company, and the domain admin, meaning I could manage user profiles and startup scripts. One of the directors asked me to do something I absolutely wasn't comfortable with. Alter invoices after they were generated so clients would be billed for work that wasn't actually performed. The extra money helped make his department look more profitable. He knew I was one of 2 people in the company with access to Photoshop and assumed I was morally bent in his favor. I was not. I refused. I told my boss, and when my boss did nothing, I put in my notice. A few weeks later, I was already in my final 2 weeks with the company, and he pushed again to alter a bunch of invoices, this time claiming it was an approved thing from accounting. I refused again, but this time I also decided he could experience a small IT mystery. I wrote a simple batch script that randomly rebooted a computer between 5 to 10 minutes after startup and added it to his profile's startup script through Active Directory. He knew I had access to everyone's machines, but he assumed it was a hardware issue because they were experiencing them for a full year across his department. After about 5 random reboots, he called me into his office to fix it. The director went to lunch, and I sat down at his computer, stared at the screen, and began my extremely advanced troubleshooting process. I ate the Skittles from the jar on his desk for around 5 minutes. I told him I'd keep an eye on it. He never figured it out. The funniest part is that my own IT manager had no idea what startup scripts were, so a file named something boring like cmosupdates.bat was enough to fly under the radar. I left the company. A week later, this old director started contacting me, demanding I finish a project I had committed to, unpaid. It was something my replacement couldn't handle. I ignored the messages, blocked his number, and moved on. Perpetual reboot insanity.bat lives on in legend now. Whipta if I told my mill I don't want her moving to our dream town? My husband, 30M, and I, 30F, moved to State A few years ago. Shortly afterward, my in-laws moved there too. Eventually, we both got remote jobs, so we started talking about where we actually wanted to build our life. For our entire 6-year marriage, we've dreamed of moving to a little coastal town we'll call Beach Town. We've vacationed there for years, honeymooned there, and both love it. It's our dream. Last year, we told my in-laws we were seriously considering moving there. In that same conversation, my MIL announced that she felt God was telling her they needed to move there too. They had never even visited. We tried to roll with it and all went to Beach Town to look at apartments. The trip was bizarre. They followed us everywhere we went instead of making their own plans. When I suggested they explore for a few hours while we looked at apartments, my MIL started sobbing and hugged us like we were abandoning her. The whole trip felt suffocating. They mostly just followed us around like silent ghosts and didn't contribute to conversation or even try to have fun. My husband and I left thinking, we absolutely do not want to move there with them. So we moved back to our home state instead. They followed us there too. At least there are 5 of my husband's siblings nearby, so we figured it's less pressure on us. A few weeks ago, I privately mentioned to my SIL that Beach Town is still on the table for us. We still think about it constantly, but I didn't tell my in-laws. A few days later, my MIL randomly asked us, "Are you guys thinking about moving to Beach Town when your lease is up?" Then she said, "We've wanted to live there for 6 years. That's always been the plan." I was so angry I had to leave the room and threw up in the bathroom. For context, my FIL has cheated on her repeatedly for 30 years, and sometimes I wonder if she's vicariously living through us. I obviously can't know that, but she frequently copies our plans while my FIL seems completely indifferent and just goes along with her. We've told them that if we eventually move to Beach Town, we don't want them basing their plans around ours. Their response? "We aren't following you. We're following God." And honestly, that makes me even angrier. It feels incredibly insulting to have our 6-year dream repeatedly hijacked and then be told it's just God. I know we don't own Beach Town. I can't tell them where they can live. I just want some space. I don't want to feel responsible for uprooting their lives again. Can't a girl have a little whimsy and adventure without her MIL coming along and killing the vibe? Whipta if I bluntly told her that we really don't want them moving there with us. I already know she'll cry. I insist you take the last one. Hubby and I went grocery shopping for our upcoming vacation. We like to do spoils, since we only take this one in-state vacation every year. We like a prime rib night, seafood night, baby back rib night, etc. The local grocery store has an outstanding meat department. Generally, preceding holidays, they'll have specials where the high-end meats are really marked down. This is when we normally would buy our prime rib. We were broke during the last holiday sale, 4th of July, so we missed it. Fortunately, they had another sale, and the prime rib was marked $6 off per pound. Yay us! We are on one end of the counter checking out the seafood because the employee is currently serving another customer and he's wrapping up her last item. I wander over while he's helping her, and I notice there is only one prime rib left. It's not well trimmed at all and has almost no calotte, the cap part that tastes the best. But the price is right. I told my husband it was the last one, and the woman being helped happened to glance at what I was discussing. The employee hands her the wrapped package and turns to help me. "Excuse me." She points to the rib I saw and said, "Can you wrap that up for me, as well?" I turn to her, bummed. "Seriously?" I ask. "I was here first," she insists, and she grimaces at me sarcastically. I go to the end and tell my hubby we'll have to come up with plan B since they're out of rib. That other woman grabs her rib roast and grins again as she walks away. Mentally, both birds are flying, and I'm uttering hieroglyphics. The employee comes to me and said, "She never asked, but I have one more prime rib in the back. Would you like to see it?" I'll take it, sight unseen, and I nod. He brings out a beautifully trimmed prime rib, probably a pound or so larger than the fatty one we lost. And it has an absolutely massive calotte on it. He offered to take another $1 off per pound because it was larger than the one I didn't get. It made our day. But the thing that made it even better, we got in the checkout lane ahead of the rib heist lady. My husband unloaded absolutely everything before the roast, then picked it up and set it right under her nose. He said, "They did just so happen to have one really nice one in the back. Enjoy yours." When the clerk scanned the meat, She first said, "Oh, I know where I'm coming for dinner," then added, "Nice. They gave you a discount. Lucky you." Hubby just turned and grinned at her. She didn't grin back. Ida for forgetting my boyfriend's coffee creamer and being upset about how he handled it. My boyfriend, 40M, and I, 35F, have been together about a year and are seriously talking about marriage. I have ADHD and struggle with forgetfulness, act switching. We've discussed him having patience with me, and I recently got reassessed to restart medication. He works hard and contributes a lot at home, but forgets things too. I don't assume that means he doesn't care. The night before our errand, rest day, he was working overtime and I was meeting a friend. I had 15 minutes. He suggested Target, so I started a pickup order and he asked for creamer. Then I had to leave, switch tasks, and forgot to submit it. Later, he asked for a beer and snack. I got his beer, made his sandwich, and picked him up from work. But I forgot the creamer. The next morning, I got breakfast while he slept. We had no creamer, so I ordered Starbucks for our drive to pick up his son. We were having fun. Before leaving, I asked if I'd have to get out because I was in PJs, slippers, and messy hair. He said no. On the way home, he remembered the creamer. I suggested stopping. He pulled into a gas station. "Okay, go." Me, "What?" Him, "Go get the creamer." I reminded him he'd said I wouldn't have to get out. Coldly, he said, "Oh well, too bad. Go handle it." I felt like a scolded child. I went inside embarrassed and trying not to cry. They had no creamer, so I bought milk. I stayed quiet in front of his son. At home, I told him I felt humiliated and punished. We've discussed that I don't mind being asked for help, but sometimes I feel ordered around like his son. He said I seem resistant when he asks for help, and because he asked for the creamer, forgetting made him feel his requests aren't important to me. I explained I'd started the order, got interrupted, and forgot. When he forgets things, I don't assume he doesn't care. I want the same. I said it sometimes feels like he needs to make an example out of me when I've frustrated him. He admitted there was truth to that. This isn't the first time. He describes it as holding up a mirror. If talking doesn't make me understand how I affected him, he feels I sometimes need to experience the feeling myself. To me, that's, if you hurt me, I need to make you feel some version of that hurt so you understand. I know ADF doesn't erase the impact of my forgetfulness, and if I make him feel unheard, I want to work on that. But I don't think intentionally upsetting your partner in return is healthy. He apologized, but something still feels off. Talking about marriage is why I'm looking at this differently. I don't expect perfection. We both forget things and get tired, irritated. That's life. But I don't want a marriage where one person decides the other's mistake was intentional and then punishes them to make a point. I also don't want to dismiss his perspective if I genuinely make him feel unheard. Ita? Is holding up a mirror an unhealthy habit we can work through, or a bigger red flag? Don't share insurance details for minor parking damage. You will now be pursued for criminal hit-and-run offense. Yesterday I was sitting in my parked car, reading, waiting for my daughter's footy game to start. I had backed in. Car tries to enter the empty space next to me, front in, and is clearly not going to make it. I wave my hands, beep my horn, nothing. She takes a swipe across my passenger door. She is 70 plus. Gets out of the car and instantly denies hitting it. The white paint on my black car and the black paint on her white car, clearly not a factor. Point blank refuses to exchange insurance details, accuses me lying and trying to frame her, then walks off. I speak to Insurance Co. They tell me without her details, then I pay the excess, suggest I ask one more time, and if nothing, then file the police report. I try one more time. She tells me, "Flew Jake off. You are harassing me. Call the feking police." It's Sunday. My daughter is playing. It is minor. Life is too short. Besides my general rule of life, avoid anything that involves the police if possible. This morning, I walk to work, right past a police station. Why not, I think? Maybe I will get laughed out, but screw it. The officer is good, explains that not giving details is a criminal matter and will be followed up. It carries significant legal weight. So, Mrs. Angry Bitch of Gosford, New South W's. You could have just taken 2 seconds to be a decent human, but you chose not. Now you have a criminal issue to deal with, not just a minor fender bender in a car park. Ida for renewing my lease after my roommate promised my room to someone else? I need outside opinions because obviously my friends are going to side with me, lol. I've lived at the same college apartment for the past 2 years, and I'm going into my senior year. My roommate, I'll call her S, moved in last year. She's a year younger than me. We aren't really friends, but we've always been nice to each other and have never had any problems. Around 8 months ago, we talked about our plans for the next school year, and I told her I was moving out. At the time, I was 100% planning on leaving. My renewal was going to be almost $2,000 a month, and I thought that was insane for a college apartment, so I declined it. I guess based on that conversation, S started making plans for next year and found 2 girls she wanted to live with. She promised my room to one of them. I didn't know any of this was happening. Fast forward to August 16th. I was literally in the process of moving out when my apartment complex randomly contacted me and offered me a new renewal for a much better price. Before accepting, I asked them if anyone had applied for my room because I didn't want to screw anyone over. They told me nobody had. I thought about it and decided staying made more sense for me, so I signed the lease. I told S that I renewed, and she was upset because she had already promised my room to someone. She asked if I would be willing to transfer to a different unit so the girl she planned on living with could still have my room. I told her no. I've lived in this specific apartment for 2 years. I already signed my lease, and I don't want to move to another unit just because she promised my room to someone without telling me. She explained that because I told her I was moving out, she made her plans based on that information. She also said she obviously didn't know management was going to offer me a discounted renewal and that she wasn't trying to be disrespectful. She thought I had already signed somewhere else and was confused when I told her I was staying. She also brought up that I'm graduating after winter quarter, so I guess from her perspective, it made more sense for me to move. I understand why she assumed I was leaving, because that is what I told her months ago. I also understand that me changing my mind messed up the plans she made. But I didn't know she had promised my room to anyone. Nobody had actually applied for it, and I only changed my mind because management came to me with a completely different offer. I told her I wasn't mad at her, and I don't want there to be any weird feelings between us, especially because we're still living together. I just don't think I should have to transfer out of a room I've lived in for 2 years because of plans I didn't know existed. So Aita for changing my mind and renewing? Edit. Sorry, this is my first time posting, and I realize I left out some important details and explained the timeline pretty badly. That's on me, so hopefully this clears up some of the confusion. My original lease was set to end on August 20th. I had told my roommate back in December, about 8 months ago, that I wasn't renewing because I was paying around $2,000 a month and didn't think it was worth it. At the time, she also told me she wasn't planning on renewing, so as far as I knew, we were both leaving. I did not have another apartment or lease lined up. My plan was to move back in with my mom to save money, which is why I was already moving my belongings out before August 20th. The application period for new residents to live in our apartment closed about a month before my move-out date. During that entire application period, nobody applied for my room. I also had absolutely no idea my roommate had found someone she wanted to live with or had promised that person my room. She never mentioned it to me. Then on August 16th, 4 days before I was supposed to move out, management unexpectedly contacted me with a new renewal offer for around $1,000 a month. Our complex has pretty bad retention, so they were offering much better rates to some previous residents after the new resident application period had already closed. Before accepting, I specifically asked management whether anyone had applied for my room or if someone else was supposed to be taking the space. I was told no one had. There were also 2 other rooms available in our apartment. Based on all of that, I genuinely thought my decision only affected me. The new price was basically half of what I had been paying, and it meant I could keep my own space instead of moving back home, so I accepted the offer on August 16th. I told my roommate immediately after I signed. This is when I found out for the first time that she had planned on living with 2 other girls and had promised my room to one of them. I genuinely did not know this girl existed or that anyone was expecting my room. A lot of people are asking why her friend didn't just apply for my room during the months I was planning on leaving, and I honestly don't know. She never applied during the application period. By the time I received my renewal offer, applications for new residents had already been closed for a month, so even if I had still moved out on August 20th, her friend could no longer apply for my room anyway. I completely understand the criticism that I should have talked to my roommate before signing, instead of immediately afterward. That's fair, and if I were in this situation again, I would communicate first. If I had known she had someone lined up for my room, I honestly would not have accepted the offer. What I disagree with is the idea that I knowingly took her friend's room or purposely changed everyone's plans because I wanted a good deal. From the information I had at the time, nobody had applied for my room, applications had already closed, management confirmed the space was available, and I didn't know my roommate had made plans involving my room. Also, for people asking why I'm staying if I'm graduating after winter quarter, that's still around 6 months for me, and I'm planning on continuing into a master's program afterward. I still need somewhere to live and would prefer to keep the space I've already lived in for the past 2 years. I don't think my roommate is a bad person, or that she intentionally did anything wrong either. I understand why she assumed I was leaving, because that's exactly what I told her. We both just made decisions without knowing what the other person was planning. We talked about it afterward, she explained her side, I explained mine, and neither of us wants there to be hard feelings. Hopefully that clears up the timeline, because I definitely made it sound more confusing than it actually was in my original post. Want to change the rules on me a second time? Enjoy dealing with a detailed notebook of timed things. Edit to add, "im on a phone." My apologies. Also, not the best at typing in general. I'll be editing it better to read easier. Second edit to add, I wanted to add some context to better explain. Breakfast is at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., lunch is at 12 to 1. During that time, the maximum amount of rooms, if there's a full floor, is 30, plus the add-ons, that's 2 public restrooms, 2 med rooms, 2 nourishment rooms, 1 break room, and 3 employee bathrooms, on top of restocking linens in both closets, and collecting all the trash from everything but the linen rooms, as they don't have trash cans. That's a whole 40 rooms alone to complete, plus 4 nurses' stations, but they're not rooms, so I didn't add them in the count. That's a lot for a single person to handle by themselves. Mind you, I also get 2 15-minute breaks and a 30-minute lunch. To do a daily clean, you need to go from the cleanest part of the room, where the patients sleep, to the dirtiest, aka the bathroom. As for non-patient rooms, I still need to wipe everything down, replace what needs replacing, toilet paper, paper towels, trash bags, the paper seat covers people use, and mop. That all can't be done in the single hour I have when the patients have lunch, because I'd need to learn an Olympic sprint to do so for each public space, because this floor isn't small, it's the literal wing of the hospital alone. And a discharge takes upwards of an hour because of the nature of this floor being long-term care and rehabilitation, so we must be thorough with cleaning any and all discharge rooms, especially to combat anything that could pop up. I'm going to be documenting my literal seconds because of how they've consistently talked to me about my times and what their expectations are of me. I'm aware I'm being taken advantage of, and I'm done letting it happen, so either they fix something or I'll be looking at a different location to work. I've not gotten a single write-up, just to be clear, and I've been there almost a year now. Okay, so this just happened today, and the petty revenge starts Saturday. I work as a housekeeper for a hospital. I've been trying to go full-time since I started there, but I've gotten constant complaints from a particular floor, which I will be honest, at points was my fault, but otherwise they're just being jerks. The medical staff, nurses, and such, who are near constantly at their desks because of the whole purpose of the floor being long-term care. These nurses in particular are rather gossipy and like to start issues with the housekeeping because they see us as lesser than them because we scrub toilets and aren't medical. They've managed to chase off other housekeepers, and they like to complain about any housekeeper who's not engaging in their petty discussions. I personally don't play their games and actually just go through the rooms and deal with the patients with a smile and a polite voice. I don't bother the nurses unless it's something regarding the patients. Mind you, I've got to do 30 rooms solo, and protocol is each room is meant to take 15 minutes, but I've gotten them down to 7 to 10 minutes throughout the day. I also have to do discharges, but I work from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., and a lot of the time I've got to do a separate job that takes roughly 40 minutes before I can go begin the rooms. I'm also expected to get fresh linen and the trash from the nurses' station, the nourishment rooms, and all public and employee bathrooms, the break room and med rooms. I'm not allowed to enter a room when someone's eating because, chemicals and food aren't a good mix, so I give them a whole hour from when they get their meals to when they're done. I try to be considerate, but that's gotten taken advantage of by the medical staff. As they complain, I don't do as much as I should. Mind you, it's as follows: 2 public restrooms, 3 employee bathrooms, 1 break room, 2 nourishment rooms, 2 med rooms, 4 nurses' stations, 30 patient rooms at any given point. I'm expected to do this all solo in a full 8-hour shift. On to the petty revenge, I managed to get all 30 rooms done within 7 to 10 minutes on a routine. However, I was told in July that's an issue, and I need to take more time as my bosses don't think I was doing accurate timekeeping, so this whole month I've been doing each room for 15 minutes. That took my entire average from the whole 30 rooms I managed to do down to 15. Today, they sat me down and told me I needed to do each room for 30 minutes max. I explained how that will not work out at all, and I've decided that I will instead record each second of what my day looks like. I'm buying a stopwatch and notebook, and I will be writing how long each second takes me for every item, from wiping down the door handles to how long it takes me to ensure I'm leaving a clean toilet for the patient, to how long it takes me to mop, and even how long it takes me to go from between rooms. I will update when I give my bosses the notebook. I'm also getting HR involved because they keep moving the goalpost, and I'm done playing the game. I signed my ex-boss up for notifications regarding a donation in honor of a guy he wrote up who turned out to have cancer. Not sure if this counts as petty, but I'll cross-post to pro revenge if it is. Some backstory. My ex-boss was the bane to my existence when I worked for him. This story isn't about me, though. It's about the manager he treated poorly up until he died from cancer. This manager, let's call him Jacob, was amazing. When I got hired, he was who did my interview, and he was very upfront about the expectations of the job, and overall a very nice man. Our job isn't exactly a modest one, but he said it was thanks to us that the corporate could run smoothly, and without us, it wouldn't succeed. A year or 2 in, corporate hired his new boss. Let's just call him Dale. Dale already had a bad reputation in the corporation with other facilities, and he wasn't exactly the nicest. My brother was also familiar with Dale in the corporation, and when he heard he was the new chief, my brother got frustrated. Needless to say, Dale was not a favorite with customers. How he got this job is beyond me. My manager oversaw our department and another department, and there were 2 other managers who saw over the other 2 departments, 4 departments in total, with Jacob overseeing 2. This used to be a 2-manager job. Jacob had been asking for them to hire a second manager again, so the workload wasn't so overwhelming. Both of these departments are the biggest, basically around 75 people, while the other 2 were only of about 30. And eventually, they hired a second person, a woman. After about a year, Jacob confessed our new boss had been writing him up over and over again, for super minor things, like paint jobs not being the good shade of red, or not staying over to help out when he was leaving at scheduled times. He told us in all his years of working there, and even anywhere at all, he's never been written up. He was less than 5 years away from retiring and was talking about spending the remaining years working at McDonald's just to get away from the hostile environment. Corporate was not doing anything, and HR was basically accusing him of making it up and sided with Dale that Jacob deserved the write-ups. We were on to our spring projects when news came that, during an interview, Jacob fell asleep. The woman, let's call her Kathy, told Dale that she was concerned for his health. Kathy is a case of her own. She had no experience in our department and only got the job because her office was next to Dale's, despite multiple qualified people applying for it. Individual leaders of group projects across the company applied, some who had 15+ years of experience. Most of us didn't like Kathy because she'd give us a project that, really, never made any sense, or suggest an idea that virtually couldn't work, or would make the project longer to complete. Dale put Jacob on temporary leave, but then instantly hired a replacement. The replacement was a kid, barely an adult, 18 years old, and also had no experience. Now our department was ran by people who had no idea what they were doing. According to one of my senior coworkers, she saw Dale and the replacement at church together, always talking, so you can imagine how annoyed we were. So now, considering Dale having written Jacob up numerous times, we suspected he was going to fire him, regardless of if this was a health concern or not. Turns out, it was. Jacob had learned a month later, after a lot of visits to the doctor, head scans, blood work, he had lymphoma, secondary lymphoma that traveled to his brain. Only a day or two after he found out, he passed away. It broke all of our hearts to hear that. While I grieved, I decided to skip straight to the anger stage, and I would grieve my own way after I felt like I got my revenge. I went to St. Jude's cancer research page and signed up to donate once a month to the lymphoma research, with my money, but with his work email and work address. If you've ever donated to St. Jude, they let you choose to donate the amount in honor of someone, in which I chose Jacob. My boss would then get an email, thanking him in honor of his donation to Jacob for lymphoma cancer research. I don't even care if he cancels the subscription to the emails. I just wanted him to get the single one email, thanking him for the donation, and maybe some mail about donating. This happened many years ago, but I felt like sharing. To honor Jacob, I bought a pinned Asian blue bee with a paper in the display that says, "Be thoughtful." It's a reminder to always be thoughtful of what other people are going through.